嚟睇下，棵樹係咪發毛啊？一笪笪嘅。
It's a fungus that's gotten together with an algae and also different types of algae. And even now they're finding there are other organisms, other bacteria.
好彩以前生物堂有聽書啫。真菌就包括平時食嘅菇菌、酵母菌或者引起香港腳嘅菌。藻類呢就例如有紫菜、海藻同埋浮游植物。而細菌呢就有益生菌，亦都有會令人病嘅壞菌。所以真菌、藻類、細菌我都知係咩。點解佢哋可以夾埋嘅咩
I'll just show you on that. Some kind of look, and just press there as a light, and just bring that right up to your eye, and then get right down close. There you go. Yeah, right into the rock. See the little black dots? Yeah, and put it right to your eye, the lens, and then move your head right in then. So the little black dots, that's where the spores are.
I wouldn't think of they are living things.
That's right, no, most people don't.
真係唔會諗到呢啲係生物嚟㗎，唔知以為係污糟咋。
You can find them anywhere, any time of the year. Basically a symbiosis or a combination of different life forms. So it's not one life form.
佢係耶穌會神父 Father John McCarthy， 5歲就已經立志要研究佢至愛嘅森林。多年之後唔單止夢想達成，更加喺2002年榮獲加拿大環境獎章土地與森林類別嘅金獎，表揚佢喺加拿大紐芬蘭島保育針葉林方面嘅貢獻。
I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland. You know, it was a North Atlantic port. Say it's about 200,000 people now, 250 in the region. But still, we always had close access to the outdoors. So my dad was a great fisherman, a great fly fisherman. So I learned to fly fish before I could walk, I think. So I spent a lot of time with him outdoors. And then my parents would go pick berries in the fall, go camping, and I collected butterflies and insects and rocks and everything I could think of. So so the nature became my school and my teacher and my mentor in many ways, you know.
呢度係多倫多西邊大概2個鐘車程嘅 Guelph 貴湖市，係距離市中心冇幾遠嘅地方，有一大片森林。不過我哋今日嘅目標就唔係去睇參天大樹，而係一種好細，我哋一定見過，但就未必識得佢嘅地衣。
So here's the old villa. That was the foundation. So that's where we used to have the villa for the vacation. Yeah, and it's right on the pool there, yeah. Usually when it's damp, you can see things there. Really small stuff. But all the green you see, those are mosses. So they're not lichens, huh? And let's see on this rock here. Little black things, these black blobs, that's another lichen species, huh? The black one.
雖然地衣同青苔都係生長喺樹皮、石頭或者泥土表面嘅一層嘢，但青苔其實係植物，大部分呈綠色，而地衣就係一種真菌同光合生物嘅共生體。呢啲光合生物可以係綠藻或者藍綠藻，又叫做藍細菌。所以地衣不論係組成、形狀抑或顏色，都同青苔好唔同。
That's right. See what you do then you cut into those little black dots and look at them under 1000x under the microscope, huh? And this lens is made by a guy in Switzerland.
Specifically?
Yes, for lichenologists who often work in shadows like this, so you need a good light source, huh?
Father John 既係神父又係科學家，更加準確應該話佢係一個地醫學家。不過科學家講求證據，神父就會話你要信睇唔到嘅天主。佢身上呢兩個身份會唔會有啲矛盾呢？佢話要用一個故事去回應呢個問題。
Just imagine there's a fire in someone's backyard, you know, a little fire. And someone says, why is that fire burning in your backyard? And you could say, the fire is burning in my backyard because the covalent bonds formed 200 years ago from photosynthesis are now being broken. So all the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen bonds have been broken. Light and smoke and carbon dioxide and methane are given off and flame. And so you would say, that's why my fire is burning in my backyard. Why is the fire burning in my backyard? because I put a match to it. And you'd say, that's true as well. That's a true statement. And you could also ask the question again, why is that fire burning in your backyard? The fire is burning in my backyard because my children and I and my family want to have a wiener roast or marshmallow roast in celebration of our birthdays. So in other words, all three statements are true to explain the fire burning in their backyard. One is a scientific statement, the other is kind of a statement of fact because of activity. I put my match to it. Another one is the intention. We wanted to have a fire because it creates a nice atmosphere for our birthday.
愛因斯坦話：宗教冇咗科學就好似盲咗咁，而科學離開咗宗教就會好似跛腳一樣。好似呢個故事喺同一件事上其實有唔同層面嘅理解。科學同信仰就係兩條腿走路，幫我哋更全面咁了解真相。
I would say this because there's only one world. We can look at it from different perspectives. In other words, there's different layers to life. Like I can study the trees or how trees grow or how ecosystems function, from a scientific point of view. But also when people are walking in the forest or praying in the forest, it's also an experience of the forest. But it's at a wholly different level and often a deeper level than the scientific perspective. So in that sense, science and faith are often presented as being opposed, but really there's no necessity for that.
大自然之間嘅共生關係，正好幫我哋睇到兩樣原本似乎獨立冇關係嘅嘢，結合之後係點樣相輔相成。共生就係指喺兩個物種之間產生一種互相依賴而且互為有利嘅關係。
譬如人同腸道入邊嘅微生物就係一種共生關係。腸道為微生物提供適合嘅生存環境，微生物就會幫我哋消化所食嘅食物。而地衣當中嘅真菌同藻亦都係咁㗎。
As you may know, most fungi, they either do two things. They either kill or they decay. You know how things go rotten, right? That's how the fungus rots that out. So you see how soft it's become? So it was once hard wood, and then the fungus just decays it.
真係好腍㗎，好似點緊個海綿咁啊！
And so once everything falls, it just starts to break down. They eat dead organic matter. Whereas lichens are not like that because once they become lichenized, the fungi then can photosynthesize. So it changes its nutrition. It just makes energy or food from the sun. So you got this wonderful happy combination between a fungus that gets all its nutrition and food now from the algae, and the algae has got a protective home in which to live as well. And so because they can photosynthesize, lichens are then found anywhere. They don't need soil to grow. Trees, rocks, soil, abandoned cars. I've seen them on abandoned cars in the forest, concrete, pavement. Anywhere where there's a stable surface over long periods of time, then the lichen can grow.
其實都真係幾 amazing 嘅喎，變成地衣之後，好似一個就出間屋，一個就出嘢食咁，互相照顧。雖然佢哋細到冇人睇到，但可以自給自足之餘，仲可以釋放氧氣俾世界。雖然好似好老土啊，不過都真係睇到一樣嘢，無論幾咁渺小，都一定有佢可以貢獻嘅地方。
Father John 其實係森林生態學嘅博士，雖然經常走入森林入邊做研究，但一直都冇注意過地衣。原來係因為佢所長大嘅紐芬蘭島發生咗一場發展與保育之間嘅爭議，而帶佢走入地衣嘅世界。
I got a contract with the government of Newfoundland and Labrador to lead a rare lichen survey. And there was these rare lichens that were growing on the trees, and people wanted to cut the trees, so they wanted to get a sense of where these lichens were in different parts of the province. So it was basically then that I started to get introduced in a very concrete way to lichens. I don't know, then it just I was just like bitten by it. I mean, it was a real sense of their beauty and the color, and there's just something about, I'm just fascinated with this type of organism as well.
地衣有唔同嘅顏色同生長形態。Father John 而家就會帶我哋去佢實驗室，介紹下佢喺唔同地方帶返嚟研究嘅地衣。
Maybe I could show you there's three main types of growth forms of lichens, and the first one is the foliose, they're like leafy, like lettuce on.
成塊地下啲枯葉咁嘅樣㗎。
So it only grows in the kind of high latitudes. in the Arctic and northern Newfoundland. You won't find it at all in southern Ontario. It's too warm here, you know. And when it gets wet, it gets really bright green, isn't it? Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, it's getting the algae is showing up, huh? Inside. And that. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, you can see how quite green it gets in that. If you cut into the leaf, there's a band of algae just inside the fungal skin. And then we have these crustose lichens, you know, that grow right on the rock. You can see that. That's a nice black one there, you know.
仲有唔同顏色添。
And this will only grow on the coast, so seashore rocks. And there's another species there as well, yeah.
呢嚿石上面橙色嘅部分就係地衣嘅本體，黑色嘅呢就係一個個裝住孢子嘅囊。原理有啲似呢，我哋見到樹上嘅豆莢會打開跌出種子，孢子囊去到某一個適當嘅時候，都會打開射出孢子嚟到繁殖。
The spores can be blown around the world even, you know? Yeah, so wind.
I wonder if like there's no other trees around, how do the lichens get
Well, that's it, yeah, it's definitely by wind and that. So these are really common lichens in where there's a lot of nitrogen in the air from car exhaust and fertilizers. They're nitrophilous, they call them, so that they can withstand pollution or in the air.
原來睇一個地方生長咩品種嘅地衣，係可以睇得出附近環境嘅空氣成分。研究員會揀一個固定範圍嘅地衣群，然後每幾年量度佢哋嘅大細，同埋體內吸收咗幾多唔同嘅化學物質，例如係硫、銅或者鉛等等嘅空氣污染物。累積到嘅數據就可以反映空氣質量嘅變化，監察環境污染。真係估唔到咁細嘅地衣都可以有咁大嘅作用。
And then you get these so-called fruticose lichens. They come up as like a three-dimensional structure, you know. And then these are so-called bearded lichens. So it's interesting. Huh? They're like pendulous from the trees. They just hang down, so you can just feel how light it is, you know. In Newfoundland, they call them old man's beard.
Yeah.
And then so yeah.
It really looks like beard,
So that's what you kind of do with old man's. And these have a lot of brown and black ones too.
應該係隔菜嚟嘅，
唔係啊，
Yeah.
唔係。
係嘛？
We couldn't eat. We can't eat it now. The caribou of the world, you know, all the ungulates of the world, the reindeer, they love this, and they can eat it and digest it. It's their main food. This is this here as well, and this one. So just that gives you a sense of the variety of growth forms. And like normally when you have plants, it's all green, or they have leaves that all look alike in general, or stems, whatever. But lichens are quite diverse. You know, you would never think that, you know, these are both lichens, huh? This is the same as that or this, you know. So it's quite a variety.
一次過睇咗咁多唔同形狀同顏色嘅地衣，終於開始學識欣賞佢哋嘅多樣性。全世界已經發現嘅地衣多達2萬幾種，每個都有獨特嘅名，而其中一個由花德莊發現嘅新品種，更加係以佢嚟命名。
What's the importance of giving a name? Well, it's like humans, you know, we give a name when we're born. We're christened, right? When we put a name to an organism or to a plant, to a lichen, to an animal, to a human, so it's no longer that or it, but it becomes a person, or it becomes a Acarospora McCarthyii. In other words, it has a name, and then I can enter into a relationship with that species. And then it's a way then to talk about the organism among many different people through time. So the organism is discovered, but only after it's named does it really become known.
正如我哋會為寵物甚至一啲物件改名，因為我中意佢哋，會同人講起佢哋，佢唔再係是但一隻貓、一隻狗或者一個公仔。同樣，造物主係咁愛佢所創造嘅一切。亦都願意佢哋有一個專屬嘅名字，而佢就將呢個責任同權利交咗俾人。
In Genesis, right, God gave Adam the mandate, the vocation to name all the creatures, and so that's very important, I think, you know, to do that. And Adam, of course, Adama is of the earth, so God names the first human of the earth, and Eve is the source of all life, and so that's what we're called to do in many ways as well, you know, to enter into a relationship with the world created around us. And the best way to do that is to give it a name, and it goes from there.
喂，睇下呢度都好多啊！
So there you go. Yeah. See, they're kind of brown or like light brown.
Oh, it's like tiny mushrooms.
Yeah, it's a lichen, what they call a Lecanora semitica. See this here, right? That's a type of lichen as well.
Wow.
This is in the same genus as the new one I found, Cladonia ignatii, but this is a different Cladonia. So have a look at this one. It's Cladonia is from clad, Greek, which means branch. So these are little fruticose lichens. See those there? In other words, they stick up like they're three-dimensional. See there? Just have a look there. They look like worms that are sticking up.
This looks scary.
Yes, and some of these Cladonia are beautiful. They grow really tall, 20, 30 centimeters, and different colors and that.
Father John 自細成日同大自然接觸，似乎係順理成章修讀森林學。但佢話其實唔止係因為興趣，而係佢喺美麗嘅森林當中遇到背後更美麗嘅天主。
I think I was seeking God really in my studies because I knew I wanted to study it. Why? Not because I would necessarily get a job or make lots of money. You don't necessarily make a lot of money in these areas, but I wanted to study what I love so much because I really found that sense of beauty and of goodness and of mercy and compassion. I just found all of that in nature somehow. So my first experience of the divine, I think, is in and through the natural world.
當我哋欣賞傑出嘅藝術作品，可能係畫、文章或者樂曲，我哋都會讚下佢嘅創作者。而當我哋進一步認識甚至研究呢啲作品嘅時候，我哋仲會了解到作者嘅特色同埋創作嘅原意。對 Father John 嚟講，大自然正正係天主嘅傑作。無論係研究一大片嘅森林，抑或一細點嘅地衣，都成為佢認識呢位創造者嘅機會。
So I think the research in and of itself is kind of a divine act, because trying to understand the creation of God, really, delve into it even more and more. There's just the infinite variety and the form and the shape and the color and just quite beautiful. This is just great beauty, and then the mystery. How they're all so different, and I love the sense of systematization, classification. I love seeing how things are related one to another, and the detail. I love detail. Maybe that's why. This would drive some people crazy, maybe, but for me, it's it is quite beautiful. And really, when you encounter beauty, for me, you encounter God, because God is beautiful.
見到美好嘅事物會使人開心，咁遇上無限美善嘅天主，又點會唔係伴隨住喜樂呢？
I find it very satisfying. There's a lot of joy in it. That's really where I find God as well. The joy. If it wasn't joyful, well, I wouldn't do it. So it's fun. It gives me joy. There's a sense of meaning.
I think we try to find God in all things, and John tries to find God in lichens. For him, it's clearly a way of finding God and how God works in nature. And for him, it's not just science, it's a religious experience also. And he delights in the way God pays attention to even the tiniest details.
So I'm over 60 years old now, so it's still kind of with me. There's a real deep passion because I think it speaks to me of my relationship with God, with the divine, with beauty, with goodness. And I know I'm just really at home. I'm very much at home and at peace in nature.
喺一切事上發現天主，係耶穌會會祖聖依納爵嘅精神。相信天主並唔遙遠，佢活躍喺我哋嘅生活入面。只要訓練我哋嘅靈性觸覺，就能夠喺一切事上睇得出天主嘅臨在。咁當然都包括大自然同埋科學知識啦。所以早喺450年前，正當歐洲出現科學革命，天文、物理、數學、生物學等等出現好多突破性進步嘅時候，耶穌會已經好着重科學嘅培育。唔少我哋熟悉嘅名，包括利瑪竇、湯若望、德日進等等，都係出自耶穌會嘅科學家神父。
I'm officially assistant to the provincial of the Jesuits in English Canada, but at the same time, I have a mission of focusing on the writing and research, in particular in faith and science, ecology and faith, and also in the lichenology. My provincial, Father Peter Bisson, has been very generous in giving me the time and opportunity, and financial support as well. So the Jesuits have also funded some of my lichen research.
估唔到科學研究竟然都係佢作為神父嘅使命之一。除咗研究同寫學術文章，Father John 仲會喺唔同平台分享佢關於科學、大自然或者戶外考察時嘅信仰反省。其中佢喺做大學神師嗰陣寫嘅每週分享，更加俾出版社邀請集結成書，銷量仲相當唔錯㗎。
When I entered, it wasn't assumed that I would be able to continue the research, but I was sent on for my doctorate in forest ecology as a Jesuit. So I was ordained a priest, and then a couple of years later, I was then sent to the University of British Columbia to do my PhD in forest ecology. So we really saw science as a way to evangelization as well. In the Vatican Observatory, which is run by the Holy See, this Holy See has given that over to us as a mission. So we train Jesuits to the doctoral level in astronomy, for example, or astrophysics or planetary geology, and they work full-time in research at the Vatican Observatory. To have men trained to a certain level in the sciences is a really important part of how we understand our service of the Church and service of the world.
我哋可能以為神父係一份工作，負責開彌撒、聽告解，但其實更加準確，應該話神父係一個生活方式，一個將生命入邊住喺邊、做乜嘢等等嘅決定權，完全奉獻出嚟，俾長上按需要而派遣嘅生活方式。佢哋可能會做本堂神父，或者教書、做行政，甚至係科學家。但其實工作所表達嘅使命，都係喺所屬嘅崗位上傳揚天主嘅福音。Father John 明明自細就希望研究森林，到底係乜嘢驅使佢甘願冒住要放棄夢想嘅風險，都要加入修會，成為神父呢？
When I was 14, years of age or so, I was thinking of becoming a Christian brother. So religious life was very attractive right in those early years, 13, 14, and 15. But then I went off to university. And then when I went to Florida, University of Florida, for my grad studies in soil science, that's when things really started to happen. And as I came to the end of the master's program, I knew I had to make a decision. I was hoping to go on for my PhD at the time. I thought, well, marriage and doctorate, life of research, that was my future. But in the end, I really had to realize that if I didn't look at religious life seriously, I'd never be content the rest of my life. So I had to give it a go, have a look at it.
讀博士、結婚、做研究，似乎係人生勝利組嘅選擇，但佢內心就似乎有另一種聲音同渴望啦。到底應該點揀呢？邊條路好啲呢？呢個時候佢諗起一個方法，叫做神操，係16世紀嘅聖依納爵經歷生命嘅蛻變之後所寫低嘅經驗之談，亦都係一本靈修手冊。正如運動鍛鍊身體，祈禱操練就可以訓練心靈，以至喺唔同嘅人生境遇或者內心渴望入邊，心水清咁樣辨認出天主嘅旨意。
And I remember I went to the local Jesuit community and said, I want to do the spiritual exercises because I hear that the exercises are helpful to make a choice between two goods. And I was really thinking seriously on marriage at the time or religious life, and well, I just didn't know how to make a good decision, So anyway, eventually I was sent to Guelph here on retreat, and at the end of the retreat I applied.
幾百年嚟，神操引領咗好多人認識自己嘅恩賜，同埋更深咁體會天主嘅愛。Father John 就係其中一個，經歷30日認真辨別之後，做咗呢個一生中最重要嘅決定。你話係幾咁奇妙呢？喺天主同夢想之間，佢首先揀咗天主，但係天主唔單止冇要佢放棄夢想，反而將佢升華成使命，等佢可以繼續研究之餘，仲以研究成果嚟見證天主創造嘅美好。喺佢房入面掛住嘅呢樣嘢，由佢讀博士開始就保存到而家，正好成為天主存在喺萬物之中嘅具體標記。
Well, this is I call a cookie from a tree, balsam fir. It came from my doctoral research. I was examining the ring width And at one point in time, I just sectioned it and then this popped out, so I kept it. And what it is, it's the old branches. But then, of course, they eventually die in the shade. They basically starve because they can't photosynthesize. And then they will just break off eventually. And then so the tree keeps growing in width, and then it just grew and then totally encompassed the 4 branches. So it's a nice, whereas this side you don't see it at all, It just happened to where the chainsaw cut. So I just kind of use that as really kind of seeing God on all things and Christ, the Trinity at the heart of all creation. So it kind of symbolizes my own sense of the natural world.
科學研究可以幫我哋了解自然界嘅運作，而信仰就能夠令我哋欣賞到大自然存在嘅原因同埋天主臨在嘅標記，兩者相輔相成。就係因為天主愛我哋，願意人類同其他受造物擁有一個美好嘅家園，我哋自然有責任認識並且保護佢。呢一片森林其實係一個保育項目，希望用500年能夠還原森林嘅原貌。森林同馬路對面嘅避靜園、有機農場等等，都係屬於耶穌會依納爵中心嘅部分。成個中心嘅使命就係希望幫助人喺同土地同大自然親身接觸之中，深化同造物主嘅關係。想知道更多呢個中心嘅特點同埋故事，請留意收睇另一集嘅《愛常傳》。
2014年嘅4月27號，天主教會第一次將2位前任教宗若望23世同若望保祿2世一齊宣聖。若望保祿2世點解會成為歷史上出訪最多嘅教宗呢？而若望23世點解會有善良嘅教宗呢一個美譽呢？佢對世界和平又作出咗乜嘢嘅貢獻呢？想了解呢2位教宗嘅生平事蹟同成聖嘅旅程，請留意呢一個星期嘅愛常傳。睇完呢一集嘅愛常傳，歡迎大家打我哋嘅熱線電話，分享一下你嘅感受或者係故事。同時都請收聽我哋逢星期6嘅電台節目《愛生命》，以及訂閱 Podcast。要購買天主教書籍同信仰靈修禮物，請嚟到我哋位於 Markham 嘅生命恩泉資源及媒體中心參觀選購。我哋下星期同樣時間再見，天主保佑。